Nostalgia Street invites you on a retro ride that's more than just a trip down memory lane.
Uncover life lessons and personal growth stories that stem from our collective past.
So you can live a richer, more connected life today.
Whether you're a 90s kid, an 80s teen, or simply young at heart, you'll find something to relate to in each episode.
Now, here are your hosts, Vince and Jeff. Welcome back to another exciting episode of Nostalgia Street. We have a fun guest today, a good friend of the studios. But we're going to tell some stories today that just kind of help shape how we have grown and how we are, who we are today. And we're going to start real quickly with a peppered question by Vince.
All right, Tori. So imagine this. Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods, and pick another athlete of choice.
Chewbacca.
Athlete of choice.
LeBron James, I guess.
Okay, the three of them are in a room and they have to play Tetris. Who wins? 1 hour time limit.
Michael Jordan.
Why?
Because he's the most competitive.
But he's got an hour to play it, man. But Tiger Woods is competitive too.
He is, but Michael Jordan will cut your throat.
Michael Jordan wins by default by cutting throats. Cutthroat.
Yeah.
And that's some of the answers we're hoping for today are cutthroat answers. So I think we've got the man for the show here. Would you introduce our guest?
I will. But first, we're going to do a quick little plug out. Our sponsor today, God, I love these guys over there at Forefront Studios. They are killing it.
Yeah, look at that merch you're wearing.
I know. Look at that. So Forefront Studios, we create content to help clients really fuel. I can't even talk to you. Fuel their results. And actually, our guest today, Tori Haggerty, is one of such clients. Tori owns Tuscan Club Consulting. We're going to have him talk about that towards the end of the show. But let's get right into it with some questions. Are you ready, Tori?
No.
Perfect.
At least he's honest.
Yeah, I like that. So, what was that one toy when you were maybe 5, 6, 7 that your parents could not pry out of your fingers?
For me, it was probably video games.
All right.
So I'm old enough to start on Atari in the very early 80s. And it was very archaic, you know, just the basic graphics. And then I remember when the Nintendo came out, and we were not wealthy growing up, and we certainly didn't get wealthier as we aged. But man, when that Nintendo first came out, the original Nintendo, it was like drugs for a little kid.
So which was the game that inspired the most smack talk?
Well, that depends, because a lot of the original Nintendo games were just one-player games. So when you just play by yourself, you know, there wasn't really a lot of smack talk because you weren't playing against each other.
Okay.
You know,
Like solitaire.
Yeah.
Smacking yourself.
You know, I remember like Mike Tyson's Punch Out. That was probably the most frustrating game on the planet. So if you guys ever played that game, you get down to the end and you play Mike Tyson. And the thing that really sucked was you get all the way down to the end, and then he just whips the snot out of you right away, and then you're done. But then you figure out the code to get to him, and then you can play him whenever you want. And then you get whipped by him over and over again, and then you just get frustrated, and then you quit.
So there was a code.
There was a code. It's 007-373-5963. Now, one of the reasons why I'm good at my job is because I've remembered that code since 1988 when the game came out. And you can verify the code. You can Google it. Google 007-373-5963, and it will come up as the code to warp to Mike Tyson on Mike Tyson's Punch Out.
It's also the password to Tori's Gmail account.
It might be. You never know.
Well, it was.
So anyway, so fast forward until about 2003, and I'm actually in the military at this point. And a buddy of mine was like, oh, yeah, I can beat Mike Tyson. I'm like, whatever. You can't beat Mike Tyson. And he said, yeah, I can. There's a way to beat him. I'm like, no, it's impossible. I saw one person knock him down one time.
Does your buddy still have his ear?
He does.
Okay.
Well, he did at the time. So he said you can beat him, and there's actually a method to do it. The first 90 seconds, if Mike touches you, he knocks you out. So you just dodge him for 90 seconds, and then he punches you and you jab him and you get him close to knocking him down without knocking him down in the first round.
Yeah.
And then when you get to the second round, you block him until your hearts go down, and then he knocks you down, and then you get back up, and then you fight him straight on from there, and he loses his super punch, and you knock him down 3 times, and the game's over.
So what year was this that you were playing this game? Do you remember?
Well, this time was 2003, but originally it was the early 90s. And as a little kid, though, I mean, you don't know that, and you don't have Google, and nobody knows that and figures that out. And it was decades that he frustrated me until I was an adult, and then I finally got to beat him.
Did you play much Pac-Man?
I did. I played that, and played it in the arcades growing up, but Zelda was my favorite game.
That was
Still
Atari.
love that game.
Was that Atari?
That was Nintendo.
Nintendo. Okay.
And then when it came out for Super Nintendo, man, it was just such an awesome game.
Can we talk real quick about like arcades? Because I feel like I missed out on that like golden age.
Oh
He
yeah,
did. He totally messed up.
arcades were awesome.
Speaking
you know?
of quarters,
Oh yeah, we could have used some today. So we had a little frustration finding a parking spot and lapped the block 8 times getting here. Missed, almost drove home and then finally found a parking spot, yelling and swearing on Main Street. And then we find out it's a holiday and you don't need to pay for parking. But
yeah,
use some
arcades,
quarters today.
a quarter went a long ways back then.
They did.
Compared to now.
Now it's you pump $1 in just to get one life. But
Right,
yeah,
right.
arcades were awesome, and you got tokens, and then you would get these tickets that were, you get useless crap with them, but it was a lot of fun. And you play Skeeball and whatever arcade games you want. You go in there with $5 or $10, man. You play all afternoon and you get prizes, and it was a lot of fun. And
I can hear the sounds in my head just while.
oh yeah,
in the
it was a kids'
arcade.
casino.
It was, yeah,
Absolutely.
It's a good way to put it.
Yeah,
It's casino.
Kids
Absolutely.
casino. It was.
but the racing games and the flying games. What was that? It wasn't off road, but it was Cruising USA.
All right.
You got to shift, and it even had a clutch on there and everything. Man, it was a
14-year-old, I'm gonna learn
Cruising
how to
USA.
clutch.
It was a fun game. That's
So
how we learned how to drive.
Mike Tyson home. But what was your go-to arcade game that you'd pump some cash?
It was probably
into?
Cruising USA. It was the racing games.
All right.
Because as a 10-year-old, it's fun to drive, and I mean, it felt like you're sitting in a car.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
did any of those skills translate to your current driving?
Oh yeah, I got in a ton of car accidents from age 14 to 18.
Because of Cruising USA?
Cruising
Oh
USA.
yeah, absolutely. You
You
learn
learn
what not to
Cruising
do.
Yugoslavia.
Yeah, I know, right? Maybe Safe Driving USA, and I
You definitely
probably
did.
would have
It's so
stayed on
fun.
the road a lot more.
So picture you're in your arcade of choice. What's the music that's pumping through that's getting you going?
Oh, it's probably 80s rock music.
Yeah.
So there's a big generation gap between me and my older siblings, 12 and 13 years. So they graduated in the mid to late 80s, and then my brother and I graduated in the late 90s, and I graduated in 2000. So when I was a young kid, it was the mid to late 80s, and I remember riding around with my brother like in his Camaro or whatever, and 80s rock music, pumping over the stereo, and that's what I remember growing up listening to, and
Yeah.
so hearing all that. And then my brother and sister graduate and they leave home, and then I coming of age in the mid 90s, and Nirvana and Pearl Jam and 90s grunge just completely kicks 80s
Yep.
out. It's like, all right, 80s, you're done, you're out. Grunge comes in, total new genre of music, and takes over the scene. And then that's what I grew up listening to at that point. And then I started playing drums in the early 90s, and then a year later I bought a guitar and was in a band and whatnot. And then that was my music through the 90s. And
So who are your favorite songs from Nirvana or Pearl Jam?
what's funny is when I started listening to Nirvana, I thought they were the game changers. I thought they were one of the most influential bands, and they were, and they did really change music. But I look back at them now as an adult, and I've really grown to love the Beatles now over the last 4 or 5 years. And I look now at what the Beatles did, and I look at what Nirvana did, and it's not even close. But as a kid, I thought, man, Nirvana, holy wow, they changed everything. And yeah, they did change a lot in a short period of time, but man, the Beatles were on a totally different level. But now that I look back at Nirvana's music, it does not hold up, not even close to the way the Beatles' music has held up 60 years later. I look back at Nirvana's music, and I'm just like, man, a lot of this is kind of crap. I don't look back at it near as fondly as I do at the Beatles' music, which I did not grow up listening to, and I've grown a huge appreciation for now. But a lot of the other music, like Pearl Jam and Soundgarden, a lot of that stuff, I still enjoy a lot of that music. And Pearl Jam, is still touring to this day. In fact, they're the only, band from that era that's still around. But in all fairness, they're the only band from that era that's technically still alive. I mean, most of those guys are,
God rest
dead from
rest in
drug
peace.
overdoses and other reasons. So,
Yeah.
So have you ever played that game where you form a super group with like your favorite band members from different bands? Like, what's that super group and what would you name it?
well, the name now you're asking me to come up with something creative on the spot. That might be a little different, but some of those guys did form some super groups. So some of those guys from like Pearl Jam and Soundgarden, they did form some super groups. Temple of the Dog was one of those, and it was kind of a project where they did get together and they formed a group, and they came out with some really good music. So
But we want to know Tori's super group. You're the band manager.
My
you
super
can
group?
pick whoever you want from any era. Yeah,
From any era?
You got unlimited cash.
Tokens.
Tokens, you got
all the
unlimited
tokens in the
tokens.
world.
You can buy all the.
Pop them in.
in all fairness, the Beatles kind of were a super group. I mean, they had 4 of the greatest musicians of all time. But you take, wow, I don't know. I'd have to think about that.
Like, who do you want to see make music together?
Okay, so somebody recently said, and I'm not a Rolling Stones fan, but the Rolling Stones have a guitarist, and they have, what is it? They have a guitarist and a drummer right now. Or no. Well, the Beatles right now have a bassist and a drummer, and the Rolling Stones have a guitarist, or they have 2 guitarists, and it's like, okay, they could get together and join.
Together.
Yeah, exactly.
So Beatlestone or Rolling Beatles?
Yeah, the Rolling Beatles.
Jeez.
But I don't know.
What's your super group, Jeff?
So my super group?
Yeah.
Well, you're gonna have to have a member from U2 in there somewhere. So it's either the Edge.
U2's a controversial band, man. They're one of those bands that you either love them or you hate them.
Well, I grew up with them in the '80s. I just loved the passion of Bono, and I don't know. Like I listened to. Went to a lot of church when I was in high school.
Is this
So-
a band, or are you talking about the physical
No.
building?
Yeah,
and
physical
concept?
building.
Oh, okay.
Went to church a lot, and U2 was just one of those groups that I don't know. I just really liked. I liked the passion, I guess is the best way to put it. Like I never saw them in concert in person, not yet. I hope to go to the Las Vegas, the Sphere. Have you seen this venue that's out there? It's this great big orb. It's monstrous, and it's got all these like 4K LED lights and stuff like that. It's amazing. You should look that up on Google. It's pretty cool. They're going to be there, or they are there now in residency. But I know I saw them under a blood red sky. That was a concert they did in Colorado. And like Bono, he was just really outspoken as a passionate Irishman about all the war that had hit his country. And the way that he would sing, and to the detriment of his voice, his managers would say, you need to cut back. He's like, nope, I got to do it. I got to be me. And I've always been attracted to artists who really kind of put their passion and emotion into their singing.
Why have you not seen U2?
That's a good question. I don't know the stars ever really aligned. Life.
Why
goes
have
by.
you not made them align? I'm gonna make a point here real quickly.
No, that's good. I know what you're gonna say.
What am I gonna say?
Life goes by quickly. You gotta grab it by the guts.
Okay,
right?
so here's the deal. Literally a month ago, somebody on LinkedIn, so I'm big on LinkedIn, just connecting with people and in the industry. Somebody said on there, just buy the concert tickets.
Yeah,
A couple reasons that. Live your life, but musicians aren't getting any younger.
that's for sure.
So I just said I'm a big Beatles fan. There's only 2 of them left. Ringo is now 83.
Right.
I had tickets to see Ringo last summer when I was down in Florida. One of his bandmates, because it's Ringo and his all-star band. So Ringo plays, and he's got bandmates from 4 different major bands like Toto and a couple other bands. And one of his bandmates got COVID. They were still going to play. The next day, another one got COVID, and they're like, okay, we can't play. Wow. And then they were going to be in Mystic Lake in Minnesota in September. He gets COVID. Canceled that one. This year, he's coming to Minnesota. We're like, screw it, we're going to go. A week in advance, we bought tickets. We went back up there. We saw him. It was amazing. It was like seeing 4 concerts in one because we got guys from all these different bands.
Yeah.
But it was 3 weeks ago, I saw this post, just buy the concert tickets. And I said, you know what? You're right. He's 83, and we just bought him, and we went, and it was absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
And last summer, my wife and I drove all the way down to Fort Worth, Texas to see Paul McCartney. And he's 80 now, and it was just absolutely amazing.
That's hard to believe those guys that old.
Exactly.
Hey.
So my point is just buy the concert tickets. U2's not getting any younger either.
No, they're not. They're not. Actually, their drummer, I can't remember what the reason is, but they've got a replacement drummer in because Larry Mullen Jr., their drummer, either he's in rehab or he got sick or something happened. So it just kind of speaks to your point about
Buy the concert tickets.
Okay, quick question, trivia question. Do you know Ringo Starr's wife's name?
I know that it is the sister to Joe Cocker's wife, but I don't know her name.
That. Okay, I just asked you that question, and I just blanked on her name. But she was a Bond girl, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
She was
because
in
Joe
Moonraker, I
Cocker, who covered with a little help from my friends, and Ringo. Their wives are sisters because they're brother-in-laws. Yeah,
we need a computer out here so we can do some research.
Yeah.
Because I can see her in my mind. I think she was in Moonraker, and she's like the only show she was in.
he is a Beatle and very wealthy, so he's probably got a good-looking wife.
Yeah, probably so.
I'll go on a limb and probably
so.
guess that.
So, what kind of hairstyle were you rocking in the 90s?
Well, in the 80s, I'll admit I had a mullet. I've tried to find evidence of that, and I can't. And then in the
They're coming
90s,
back.
I can't find it. We didn't take a lot of pictures back then. And then in the 90s, I did grow my hair out, and then I bleached it. And there's one picture of that, and it actually doesn't look really bad. I have a Washburn acoustic guitar, and I'm sitting there playing it, and it's kind of like a faded picture, but it looks really cool, and I'm sitting there playing it. And then my hair grew out, so it kind of looked like a skunk. So it was brown, and then it was bleached. And then my mom actually cut hair for a living, so we had a beauty salon connected onto our house. And then it grew out far enough where then one day I was like, all right, I'm done. I went in there and I grabbed her clippers and I buzzed it all off. So then it was just brown left.
Yeah.
So then I show up the next day to school and we're like, holy crap, what happened
is
to
this
Tori's
guy?
hair? Oh, yeah, because it was like that long. And then it's been pretty much, then it grew out a little ways. And then right out of high school, I joined the military and it's been short ever since.
Well, if you ever bring back the mullet, there's a cop in town who's rocking a mullet. He's a really nice dude.
I can now. I was in the Air Force for 20 years and I was forced to have short hair. And then it's just been like this since I was 18. And I'm just like, this is it.
Gonna keep it. There's a cop in town with a mullet.
Yeah.
Mullet cop.
Well, the highway patrol and stuff, they have stricter requirements on short hair, but cops, man, city police, they can probably do whatever they want. Mullet cop.
So if you
Sounds like a good Twitter handle.
no, it probably is. If you could go back in time and take back something that your brothers or sisters did to you,
Oh my gosh.
what would that be?
A broken collarbone.
They broke your collarbone?
Yeah.
Which one?
So I have 3 siblings. My sibling that's just a little bit older than me. So back in the day, not WWE, WWF. So this is prior to the name change. This is how old
Is
it
that
was.
Federation, right?
Oh yeah, World Wrestling Federation. Used to be on at like 11 or noon on Sundays. So this is before like Monday Night Raw and all that stuff. It used to be on, so we would go to church, and then my brother and I used to ask to leave right after church so we could run home and watch WWF.
Church to wrestling.
Exactly. And then, of course, in the middle of the living room, we would get together and, he was 2 years older than me, so he was bigger than me, and we'd be goofing off. And there was one time where I was laying on the floor on my back and I was hurt because he had did something. And he gets up on the top of the couch like he's on the top rope, and he jumps on my left collarbone and he breaks it.
Oh.
So I'm laying there. Oh, I didn't hear it, but it hurt really bad.
Yeah.
And I couldn't really move. And I eventually got up and I laid on the couch. I didn't move the whole day. And my older brother, who is 10 or 12 years older, came home and I didn't want to move or whatever. And he wanted me to come into the kitchen for some reason. I wouldn't move. And finally he grabbed me and he tried to pick me up and I screamed.
Yeah.
And he's like, maybe I shouldn't do that. Finally, my mom comes home late that night, and they're like, you should probably take him to the hospital. And they did, and they x-rayed it, and I had a broken collarbone for like 6 weeks. Yeah. And, it was over Halloween and stuff, and I had a broken collarbone because of that.
So no
And-
Halloween.
Yeah. Well, I did. I just had this stupid brace on, and yeah, it was terrible.
Frankenstein.
We'll be right back.
I'm still wondering about when you were talking about grunge, and one of the things that I learned, because I took a few guitar lessons, not a lot, but it was just power chords.
Yeah.
Can you explain to us what power chords are?
So power chords, there's master chords and there's power chords. So master chords are regular chords. So you kind of put your fingers on the different frets and the strings, and you play the whole thing, and it sounds like a nice full chord. A power chord or a bar chord is where you kind of lay your finger over the whole thing, and then you're only playing a certain thing. But the thing is you can play that bar chord or that power chord on a certain string, and then you can move it anywhere you want on, and it's basically the same thing, and you move it all
So it
around.
slides.
It slides, and it's the same chord, and you move it all around, and you play different notes.
Yeah.
So it's like a cheater way of playing different chords, and then you can move it down another string, and there's a slight variation. So it's like a bar chord or a power chord, and it's a much simpler way of playing guitar without having to, there's an A chord and a D chord and a G chord and a C chord and an E chord. Those are the nice full ways of the regular way of playing a guitar, where a bar chord or a power chord, it's, with a heavy distortion. And now granted, when you're playing a rock song, you're playing power chords, and that's the way it should be played.
Yeah.
When you're playing acoustic, you're playing these nice open chords and stuff. You don't want to play those types of chords. It doesn't sound good.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're cheating the system by any means. You're playing what's appropriate for the song.
So what was the song that you first played on guitar that made you feel like, oh my gosh, I got this, like this, I'm having a lot of fun, like this is it?
Actually, it was the song Everybody Hurts by REM was the first time that I figured out a chord on accident.
Ooh.
So you play this song, do 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 do, and I was listening to it and I was figuring it out, and as I was playing it, I was figuring out what the chords were, and then I accidentally played them all, and I was like, that sounds like a chord. Back then, it was the early 90s. You can't Google, like now you can just Google guitar chords, and it tells you what fingers to put where. So for those of you that want to learn how to play guitar, you can literally just Google it, and it tells you 1, 2, 3, 4, what fingers, where to put them on. Once you learn how to read that chart, it's actually really easy. And I can tell you that because literally 3 weeks ago, I wanted to learn how to play the ukulele. Now, granted, I've been playing guitar for 30 years. So to play the ukulele, there's only 4 strings and not 6. And I literally learned how to play the ukulele in like a couple hours. Now, it's a lot easier when you're playing guitar for 30 years, but all the chords are different. So I'm reading the ukulele chords, and I'm just putting it on there, and I practiced and moved it around. I was like, okay, that was really simple. But I learned it without anyone helping me by reading this chart. Mm-hmm. Now, learning how to play guitar is hard because it's hard to move your fingers in these positions. And when you move it in that position, you're like, okay, great. And you play this and you're like stretching and pushing, and that's really hard. And then you got to learn another chord, and then you got to move it to that one and then to that one. And all of that is extremely difficult.
Yeah.
And then you got to be able to do that really fast without screwing up. And that is the part that takes a lot of practice.
Yeah.
But once you figure that out, and once you can do that easily, it's super simple. And then you can learn any song you want. All you got to do, E chord, A minor, A flat, whatever. And then it's all super simple. I can read you just tell me what the chords are, and I'll just play them. And any song is almost, easy to learn at that point.
I have all the respect in the world for great guitarists, but probably guitarists in general. Because
I'm an average guitar player.
I tried. It's
but
tough.
Now learning how to play lead guitar and solos, that's totally, totally different. But any regular song, just tell me what the chords are, show me what the tab is, and I'll be able to play it. And
So
that's
who's your
pretty
favorite
simple.
guitarist?
For somebody who's played guitar a long time, I'm really not that big into guitar when I think of guitarist. I actually started out playing drums. and I'm in a band now, and I'm the drummer of the band, and that's more of my thing. Is I love drums. I'm not big into the band Korn, although I listened to them a lot growing up.
Yeah.
They're pretty hard, and some of their music is kind of crap now looking back at it. But I love the drummer of Korn. I thought he was really good. The band Helmet, again, you never even heard of them. They're a harder band, but I love the drummer for them. And then now that I've listened to the Beatles, now Ringo, there's a lot of opinions on whether he was a good drummer or not. Technically, he was really good. And the thing I love about Ringo is how simple he was, and how he always played what the song needed, but he also got out of the way. A lot of people, especially a lot of drummers, will, I need this fill, or I need to be really fancy. And it's like, no, you need to play what's appropriate for the song.
So let's back up. You're in a band now.
Mm-hmm.
What do you guys play? Where do you play?
We play everything from the 60s into nowadays, but we've only been together for a couple months, and we're just, we got about 24 songs that we're working on, and hopefully over the next couple months we'll continue practice, and hopefully someday start playing some live shows.
He plays anywhere the parking meters aren't accepted.
Absolutely.
So someday when Nostalgia Street has a budget, we could maybe retain you to write our theme song.
Yeah.
Because he plays anything from 60s.
Well, we play
I don't know
cover
what's
songs right now. We don't have any originals, but I didn't say we were creative.
What's their favorite cover song you guys play?
We play a song by Dead-Eye Dick. It's called, God, you're putting me on the spot. I can't remember. It's the song from Dumb and Dumber.
This is where I wish we had an assistant. Be like, assistant, play that song.
Yeah.
Hey, Bill, pull that up. Dead-Eye Dick sounds familiar, but it's the only thing that I remember, and I don't know that song.
Yeah, Crash Test Dummies.
Well, yeah.
Are there covers that you hate to play, but you will play if you're paid enough for it?
Or the girls like it?
Yeah, I'm sure. I don't do it for the money though, but there are some that I won't play no matter what. I mean, I'm not a fan of country music.
I have a buddy who charges $50 per Taylor Swift song, and he makes bank in this current season.
Yeah, I mean, $50. No, there's songs
There's enough Swifties out there.
There's songs for $500 I probably wouldn't play.
Jeez, that's pretty good.
Ooh.
I'm not motivated by money.
What do you think about like a band lately? Like I never listened much at all to Metallica back in the day, but now their latest tour, and I've been watching a lot of their stuff, and like to me, they are musically so talented, more than I ever gave them credit, especially their drummer, Lars.
Yeah.
Can't remember Lars' last name, but
Lars Ulrich. Yeah.
Man.
They were the first band I ever saw, February 12th, 1996. It was the first concert I ever went to.
Yeah.
Sorry, it was 1990. Yeah, it was 97. And it was the Load tour. So it was the first album after the Black Album. The Black Album, the fans got on them a little bit for changing, and then the Load album, they really changed. They're, you guys are going mainstream, not as hard anymore. And then, they cut their hair, and but yeah, they're very, very talented, and and Lars, he's a great drummer.
And there's another band that's been around for 40 years
since the very early '80s.
Yeah, and they're still all I see. Yeah. They changed. I think their bass player changed off, right?
Well, Cliff Burton was their original bassist. He died in there's actually a unique story behind that. It was him and Kirk Hammett, the guitarist, that were in a card game, and Cliff won the card game, and so he got this certain spot on the bus to sleep, and then there was an accident, and Cliff got thrown out of the bus and
no way,
and died.
Yeah.
So then
could have been the guitarist.
Oh yeah, it could have been Kirk.
Gosh. That's wild.
And then they've had a couple other bassists throughout the years.
Yeah. And then the new guy, I don't know how long he's been with them.
Yeah.
He's good.
I haven't kept up with the band, but I was never a huge Metallica fan, but one of my friends in high school was one of the biggest Metallica fans ever, and they were in Fargo, so we went and saw them. That was the first concert I ever saw.
Yeah.
It was loud.
Well, what's we've all had these pretty like let's call it near-death experiences. I know you told me about a situation with your Jeep that ended up giving you a life lesson.
Yeah, so I've had 5 near-death experiences that I know about.
Oh gosh,
what's that mean?
The way you add that in there.
Well, I'm sure we've all had near-death experiences that we don't know about.
That's true.
Like, what do you mean?
Well, who knows that you didn't walk past a serial killer or that,
all right,
you know, somebody, you know, that, you know, bullet didn't whiz past your head. You know, there's a lot of near-death experiences you don't know about. I've had 5 that I've known about. When I was 5, I crawled up on the couch with 2 butter knives and stuck them in an outlet and got really, really badly electrocuted.
Oh gosh.
I fell out of a treehouse and nose dove into the alley from 15 feet and somehow didn't snap my neck.
Jeez.
You know, so yeah, I was driving my mom's Jeep on the 4th of July, which used to be my favorite holiday, and my tires left the road. I was messing with a stereo and I drove into a grove of trees right by the lake, and I was extremely lucky. I mean, if I was a few inches to the right, I would have missed the tree that I ended up hitting. I would have missed it, and I would have hit the trees next to it, and I would have just went head on and went through the windshield. If I was a few inches to the left, I would have hit the tree that I did hit. I would have hit that head on and went through the windshield. Well, I ended up hitting the tree just on the side of the vehicle, and it basically scraped all the way down, and it just stopped me really quickly. And all the momentum, it just basically hit on the side of the vehicle. So the front fender went behind the driver's side door. The driver's side door went behind the passenger side door. The passenger side door went behind and just all the inertia, all the force of the vehicle just went all down the side of the vehicle, and it just went, and it stopped. Okay.
Oof, good.
So I didn't have a seatbelt on. I was going 65 miles an hour, right head first into a grove of trees. The airbag didn't go off, nothing.
And you were fine.
And I stopped, and I didn't have a scratch on me. I did bruise my rib a little bit, and that was it. And I just stopped. So I go head first into a grove of trees at 65 miles an hour, and I stop. So when they say your life flashes before your eyes, it absolutely did, because I remember I stopped, and I'm going off the road, and I see these trees going in front of me, and everything slowed down really quickly. And I remember thinking, I was 16 years old, and I said, this is the end of my life. I die right here. And then things sped up again, and everything happened. It was dust flying everywhere, and it was a really warm day. It was 80 degrees, middle of the afternoon, sunny. No one was around, and all that happened, then it stopped. And I was alive, and the whole front end was gone. The car was still on, and my tire was flat, and I was able to drive all the way back up onto the road. And the first thing that went through my mind was, how do I hide this so my mom doesn't find out? And I tried to open the door, and I couldn't get out because the whole side was wedged in. And I climbed out, and I looked, and then, of course, my bumper was way down in the ditch. And then I realized, okay, there's nothing to hide here. But, you know, I realized at that moment, you know, that, you know, life can be taken away in an instant. And I should have died that moment. So every day after that, you know, I'm just lucky to be here. But then, you know, I once went through an intersection where it was wintertime. This was just a few years ago with my mom and my 2 kids and my wife, just here in Sioux Falls, in a huge pickup with a snowplow on the front of it, just drove right through it 40 miles an hour through a red light. And drove right past us, and he literally missed us by inches.
Sheesh.
And I hit the brakes, and if we would have been, you know, 5 feet further, he would have broadsided us. I was driving, my wife was right behind me. We would have both been toast.
Right.
And my kid was in the middle. He might have made it or not, and maybe my mom and my other kid were on the right side. They probably would have survived. But it's just stuff like that. You know, that was one of the 5.
Wow.
You've
So
got some serious guardian angels.
Well, yeah. Well, one of the lessons is I might be immortal.
All right, scientists, if you need Tori's blood,
I don't know.
that's a subscription.
Or I might have 9 lives, and I've went through 5 so far.
Yeah.
I might be a cat.
So I counted 4 near-death experiences. Is there a 5th one that we didn't? Or did I count wrong?
So I basically was going 35 miles an hour on a bicycle, and I had a car pull out in front of me, and I broadsided him and flipped over and nose dove into broke my tooth, and that was my other collarbone break and concussion. And
gosh.
How old were you then?
12.
Wow.
So that was 2 years after my brother snapped my collarbone. I can't believe I survived that one.
You were durable.
Malleable or malleable? Malleable?
Malleable? Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a near-death in
I'm
a
like
Jeep as
gold.
well. Like, same thing. You said it was a Cherokee?
Grand Cherokee Laredo.
Mine was a 97.
Mine was a 96 or 95.
97,
95.
white. It was wintertime. I was taking my little brother to wrestling practice at like 6 in the morning or whatever. And turning left to go home to get another hour of sleep. Big pickup truck going down the hill, brakes lock up, middle of winter. It's icy. He's going probably 40, 45, hits me head on, spin out. Next thing you know, flames are shooting up the windshield. I'm in the side of the snowbank. And of course, it's Sioux Falls. So like 6 people pull over and like, are you okay? Are you okay?
And you're in a flaming, in a Jeep that's on fire.
Disorientated. I get pulled out of it. And
No, I'm not okay. Pull me out of the.
I went to class like the next day.
So is this a bad thing for Jeeps, or is this saying something good that we both survived?
I would say good.
Durability. Yeah.
Yeah, durability for sure.
Well, I ended up buying another Jeep after that, the same color and everything.
Yeah.
A few years later, I almost died in one, and then, it didn't scar me for life from them. But
Yeah. I'd probably stick with them if you guys had those near-death
well, it had a lot of
experiences, huh?
transmission problems, but I guess that's probably
You're gonna
two
live,
separate.
though.
That's probably two separate issues.
Yeah. I mean, we promise you it'll protect you. We can't promise you it'll drive well all the time.
yeah.
So my near-death experience, I was I've had 2 at least, but when I was in high school, it was at church parking lot. My parents were they were in choir practice, and my best friend had just bought a Corvair. It was a 1965 Corvair, which oddly enough is the same car that my parents bought when they were dating. They're not a good car because if you're in the air,
If you leave the ground,
there you go. Then the tires bow in.
Oh.
And so my parents,
That
when they were
sounds bad.
dating, they were arguing. They're on a country road. My dad crossed a hill, and the tires caved. Dad brought it down. They rolled, and they were both thrown out of the car. They had full body cast when they were in high school. And so my parents were telling my best friend about this. You probably shouldn't buy this car. But he goes ahead and he does. So we're in the church parking lot, and Steve's running around, and we're just stupid kids. Somebody finds a diaper. Like, hey, next time Steve, rolls by in the parking lot, let's throw it in his window. Oh, that's a great idea. And so then I decide that I'm going to stand somewhere and dare him to hit me. So he stops. He doesn't hit me, but I act like he hit me, and I fall lengthwise in front of the car. Well, somebody runs over and they grab this diaper and like, Steve, this thing is dirty, gross. And they throw it at him and he floors it. The trunk is in the front, the engine's in the back. That front part caught right here in my chest, and it dragged me. It felt like a mile. Your whole flash, like your whole life flashes before you, like you said. But it dragged me like maybe 30 feet, maybe. And I remember as I'm laying underneath and going, this is it. This is how I'm going to die. A classmate of ours he was biking, and somebody drunk hit the kid and literally dragged him to his death. It sounds so morbid, but when the ambulance heard about the accident, they followed the trail of grotesque muck, and they found him. He was alive after, I don't know how far I got dragged. So I thought I was going to die. And so my sister...
and you knew about that story when you were getting...
Yeah, I was underneath it, and I'm thinking about this.
Oh.
And I mean, that used to be like the worst way to die was going to be that, right? Or in flames or whatever. And I remember I got on my side, and because I was trying to, I'm like, you hear these people that get Hulk-like strength, and they lift the car up over.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, surely that's going to happen to me. Nope. But he does stop, and I get out, and I'm like, oh, I'm okay. And my friend's like, dude, you're like, your jeans are shredded, and your shirt's falling off of you. I had to go to the emergency room. I had,
Road
pretty
rash.
bad rash there and down here. Luckily, I was wearing my Levi's 501 jeans. Shout out to Levi. They saved me. But man, they had to take in the emergency room. They'd take little not scalpel. Well, they had a scalpel too, but they would pick up little pieces of skin and snip them just to get the
we don't
rock
need.
stuff
I don't.
out of there.
Sorry, I don't want to hear those details. That's the stuff that gores me out.
Oh, so last time we were talking about Halloween, and that was a good topic. Today's near-death experiences. All right, it was fun stuff to go down the road with.
We'll be right back.
All right, so let's flip around now from near death to life. What's a life lesson that a mentor of yours gave you, or just maybe their demeanor and how they presented themselves that's led you to your career today?
The best I've taken away from is I've gotten to know some really great leaders in the military, from some other organizations that I've worked for. And I've gotten to know some people that I've really looked up to. And I've made the mistake of thinking that these leaders were perfect, only to be let down.
Mm-hmm.
So especially for people that are listening to this that are younger, don't make the same mistake I did. And by that, what I mean is admire those qualities in those leaders, but understand that they also have imperfections, and that's okay. So, for example, I won't give names or details on stuff, but there was one leader in particular that I swear to gosh, this guy just never said anything wrong. Everything, one of the things I admired about him is he was just so polished. Everything that he said was just the right thing to say. And I was just like, I want to be like that someday. I always just want to have the right thing to say, just always so on the ball, and just was just so smooth, and just everyone looked up to him. And then he invited me over to his house one day, and he made this really off-colored joke, and I just was like, wow, I didn't think you thought that way. I didn't think that was the type of person that you were. And it really kind of deflated my view of him at that point, and it shouldn't have, and I shouldn't have thought him of the way I did anyway. So, and I had something similar to another military leader that I knew, and I kind of looked at it the same way. It's just I watched him, and I watched the way that he talked to people, and I watched the way that people looked up to him, and then that facade, that pedestal I put him on, kind of slowly got tore down. So now when I find somebody that I admire, I look at those qualities in them that I admire, and I admire those qualities only. Right? So that's kind of my thing is I try to find, things about people that I really like. Wow, that person is a really great speaker. I want to learn more, and I want to try to model the way I speak after the way that they speak. Or that person is really charismatic. That person is a really great leader. Why are they a great leader? That person is a great writer. So rather than try to put the person on a pedestal, or rather than try to think, okay, well, that person is free from any imperfections, I try to pick the qualities out of that person that I like, and then, or the life lesson that they're trying to teach me, and just take that for what it's worth.
So what is that life lesson or life lessons that that some of these people have cast out there of their mouths, and you're like, I'm gonna hang on to that, and I'm gonna use it?
I think for me, it's never stop learning. And for me, it's learning doesn't stop when you leave a school. For me, when I left high school, I went to the military right away. So I did active duty Air Force for 4 years. But then when I was there, I went to a tech school, and then I worked on my 2-year degree and did some classes and tested out of some things. And then I got out and I went to a 4-year university program. And then when I got done with that, then I went on to a master's degree program. And then usually people are like, okay, that's it. Whether it's a 2-year, a 4-year, a 6-year degree program, or it's a tech school or a certification program, they think that's it, I'm done. When you talk about doctors and lawyers, they call them terminal degrees. Now, I know it sounds a little bit morbid, but basically what it means is I'm done. So doctors and lawyers, one of the reasons why a lot of times they don't have a good bedside manner, or they think they know more than everybody, is because they have went to this level of education that is usually further than the average person. And when they get that, they're done. There's no more further education, or they think there's no more further education for them because they've gone as far as they can. So those individuals develop this mentality that I've gone as far as I can, I've gotten the highest education level, and they're done.
Right.
But that's not where education ends. There are books, there are seminars, there are courses, there are so many things that you can learn above and beyond that. I recently read a story about a surgeon. And this surgeon was one of the best in his field, but he had a growth mindset. He said, I feel like I can be way better at my job, and I want to get better at my job. So he asked an old colleague, an old mentor, a retired surgeon, to come and critique him. He said, will you watch me one day and take some notes on me? And this guy was in his 70s.
Wild.
And he said, let's say the surgeon was in his 40s.
Yeah.
Can you do this for me? And he's like, absolutely, I'll do that for you. So I imagine he's sitting up, kind of watching down and whatnot. And this surgeon, one of the best in his fields, he was like, yeah, he'll probably say one or two things. And they get done. He washes up, takes off his scrubs and everything. And he's like, oh, yeah, he's probably not going to say much. And this old surgeon starts, all right, let's go. And he's literally got a notepad full of notes. Ooh. And he's like, on this one procedure, the nurse or so handed you this tool and you grabbed it with your left hand and you crossed it over, and that forced you to do this at this angle. And that can create mistakes here. Here, you were doing this and you dropped this down and that forces here. Here, you're holding like this, you had fatigue. Here, you did this, you're stepping. I mean, It was all these little things.
Yeah.
And who would have thought that those things made a difference? Here, your light was down over here. It should be over here. Here, you were doing this. And that surgeon was like, oh my gosh.
Wow.
I never knew how many mistakes I was making. And they did this a couple times, and his mistakes went down by over 90% in the next couple months. So the point is, you are never too good at your job. You are never too old to stop learning. This whole terminal degree, this I've gotten as far as I can go. I never stop learning. At one point I was trying to read 50 books a year, and there was one year I did accomplish that.
Yeah.
Reading books on leadership, reading books on being a better dad, being a better husband or a better mother, being a better person.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the life lessons that I took away. You got to realize that somebody spent their life, 30 years in a field, and they poured their whole life's knowledge into this book, and you get to download that in a matter of a couple hours. You want to talk about video games and superpowers?
Yeah.
That's a real life superpower. That's not Stan Lee stuff. That is a real life. You get to download years worth of somebody's knowledge in a matter of 5 hours by reading that book. That is a real world superpower, and too few people take advantage of that.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I like that. I share the same mindset about always the student and never the teacher. Because you're right. No matter what you do, there's always going to be somebody who can show you or you can learn from, and you should sometimes just shut up and listen, because especially those that are older and wiser and they've been there before. Yeah, different generations, but the stories and the insights that they can give you are.
Well, that proud surgeon, that best in his field, he's like, I know that I can be better. Mm-hmm. And he had to turn off that ego and go to an older mentor and say, help me.
Yeah.
Everybody needs a coach.
Mm-hmm.
Michael Jordan needed Phil Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Everybody needs a coach.
It's good stuff. All right. Well, we are close to the end of our time, and I do want to give some shout out time for you and your business. It's talking about people that need a coach. So you have a very unique little niche in the world, fair lending. Why don't you give us a quick rundown on Tuscan Club Consulting and what people can learn from your expertise?
Yeah, so we kind of have two sides to our business. We have Tuscan Club Consulting. We partner with banks and credit unions, mortgage companies around the country to offer services for compliance. And we partner with these organizations to help review their compliance program. We basically do all the laws and regulations, all the stuff that nobody wants to do on their own. There's about 36 different banking laws and regulations that we deal with. That's the consulting side of our business. Then we have the university side of our business. That's where everything fair lending is related. So as you guys know, we had the chance to partner with you 3 years ago to create Tuscan Club University, and that was our fair lending school, and it was wildly popular. And then earlier this year, we got the chance to refilm it because it was so popular and we had so many people go through our fair lending school that we refilmed it this year. So our fair lending school is all available online. And basically, we took all of our fair lending knowledge and we put it together into a 15-course school, 15 different modules. There's 15 different videos out there. You guys helped us professionally produce it, film it in all 4K video with graphics, and it looks absolutely amazing. We got our manual that we wrote, and then we created a certification program with it, and we have had almost 200 people complete the school over the last couple years, and we're almost to 150 people that have certified it. You know, not everybody goes through the certification, although most do. And of course, we have a lot of people currently going through the school right now, and it's been wildly popular. And it's kind of one of those things too, you know, if you're a business owner or if you are somebody that has a lot of knowledge in a certain area, you know, you can go out and create your own course.
Right.
There's nothing that says you can't. It was 4 years ago in July of 2019, I got this idea. I'm like, there is no fair lending program in the country. Nobody has ever created one. I had all this knowledge. I've been through one of the only fair lending schools that's put on through the regulators that the average person can't go through. And I was a former regulator. I went through the course. That's why I knew about it. So I sat down and I started going through it all. And then I sat down with you, Jeff, and I said, Jeff, hey, I need you to help me film a commercial because I need to advertise this. I told you everything about it. And you're like, Tori, why don't you film it and put it online and everyone nationwide can do it? And I'm like, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's do that.
Yeah, you kind of knew what you were talking about.
Well, then COVID happened, so it was like perfect timing.
Oh, yeah. And then COVID happened, and I have to credit, I continually do, Jeff, and I credit you because my plan was to travel around the country and put on this school, and had you not convinced me to put it online, the school wouldn't exist.
Yeah.
Because COVID hit in March, and that's when I would have never traveled to do it because COVID would have prevented all of that.
Yeah, it was just perfect timing. I mean, I didn't.
Well, neither of us knew that.
Nobody knew about COVID.
But if you want to push me to do that, the school wouldn't have existed. And now we've generated all the revenue that we've generated, all the people that we've trained. I mean, we've put out 1,500 hours of continuing education to students everywhere from Puerto Rico to Maine. We've had people in Hawaii that have signed up.
That's cool.
I mean, it's all over the country. It's been amazing.
Cool. Well, it's perspective. I was on a podcast last week or 2 weeks ago, and somebody said, "What's one word, a little lesson that you've learned?" I'm like, it's perspective. Like just like you were talking about the surgeon. I mean, you see things one way, but when you switch your perspective and you can look around or you can grab the perspective of somebody else, you're like, wow, I never really thought about that. And I think it's kind of a good life lesson for anybody. But yeah, you're certainly knowledgeable in your field, that's for sure.
Yeah, but the what you project and the quality of what you put out to the industry says a lot as well. I'm not going to throw any organization under the bus, although I really want to right now. I went through a certification course through an organization, and they had a training video that I watched. And it was like 15 hours of education. And I literally sat through 15 minutes of it. Yeah. And it was somebody reading over PowerPoint slides. And 15 minutes of it, I was falling asleep and I turned it off. I'm done. If this is how I have to learn to get certified, it's never going to happen. And I turned it off. Yep. And I invested with you guys to do it the right way. Quality video, good instruction, and graphics, and did everything the right way. And the feedback we've gotten is absolutely phenomenal.
That's awesome.
We've done it the right way. And we've put forth that professional image, and people love it.
Sweet. So before we go, are there any last minute memories, something that you care to relive out loud about your upbringing you want to share with our audience?
You know, there's one last one I want to do. You know, one of the things that really brings back memories is your sense of smell.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
right?
Yes.
Your olfactory senses, your sense of smell is the one that triggers memories the most. For one of the big ones for me is fresh cut grass. Every time I smell fresh cut grass, I was a big golfer growing up. I used to bug my mom or my dad or whatever all the time. drop us off at the golf course, and I'd spend all day there.
Yeah.
So every time I smell fresh cut grass, I imagine my buddies and I out at the golf course and sitting out there playing all day. And for me, that's a big one is fresh cut grass. And I recently purchased an old pickup truck. So I had an old one before, and I just purchased another one. It's a 1964 Chevy C10 truck. And my dad had one growing up, and we used to take it out to the lake all the time. We had a cabin, and my brother, who broke my collarbone, and he still never apologized to this day.
What's his name?
I'm not going to throw him out. No.
All right.
He actually has. He has apologized now, because I brought it up to him a couple years ago. He did. I used to say that, and I was like, like 3 years ago, you still never apologized. He's like, fine, I'm sorry. Like 35 years later.
Now give me my Christmas gift.
Yeah. But anyway, we used to take it out to the lake all the time, and my dad would either stop on the way out there or on the way back. We'd stop at A&W, which a few of those still exist, and we get ice cream cones and whatnot. And my dad had this old Chevy C10 truck, and it was the old 65 or 66. I wasn't quite sure on the year. And we used to take it out there. And these old trucks, they just have this smell to them. They just smell like the 1960s. Mm-hmm. But anyway, my dad passed in the early 90s when I was 10 years old. And I just have these fond memories of that. So I purchased a 64 Chevy C10, and I've only had it for a few weeks now, but I had one a few years ago and I sold it, and I regret it. I love that truck, so I got another one now. I'm keeping this one for the long haul. So yeah, it's in my garage now, and I walk out to my garage and I just have that smell. It makes me think of my dad and those times as a kid. And
That's cool.
Love that.
so yeah, that sense of smell, it's tied to it so much, and it's just awesome. It brings back those good memories of being a kid, and love it.
That's cool. Cool.
Thank you so much, Tori, for the lessons, and also, the parting knowledge of go buy those tickets, Jeff.
Yeah.
Buy the
The
tickets,
tickets.
Jeff.
And the truck.
Yeah, buy the tickets.
tickets and the truck.
I'm going to go on a limb and say youtube.com/tour dates. I just made that up, but I'm probably pretty darn close.
Links in the description below.
Or google.com, YouTube.
I've talked to my wife about that. We're
Buy the
hopeful
tickets.
for November.
But life is so short, and thank you for sharing those life experiences, those near deaths.
Yeah.
Oh, near death makes you think of life.
Yeah. Well, until next time, viewers, continue to stay curious, continue to stay engaged, and we'll see you on Nostalgia Street. Make sure to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast platform. If you're on iTunes, please take a moment and leave us a rating and review.
Head on over to our YouTube channel and hit that subscribe button. You'll get access to engaging visuals that complement our podcast content.
Thanks again for tuning in, and we look forward to having you with us on our next episode. So until next time, listeners, stay curious, stay engaged,
And never stop walking down Nostalgia Street.